Right, by way of introduction, as it were, I'm not doing a lot of fusion drawing as such tonight because I prepared it all, but I want to go through the cycle. This came about because of one member who contacted us over the last few weeks with some difficulty that he was having in producing a box with compartments in to hold various items. And he was suffering from, which I'll show you in a moment, some abnormalities in the print. And some printing problems as well. And then he was kind enough to send me the fusion files, which I looked at, and I could see there that whilst there was nothing wrong with the fusion files in that sense, as I'll show you in a moment, it had been really done in a long-winded, complicated way, which probably left our member with a screen that was difficult to follow through, as it were. So we'll kick off by sharing. Okay, so you should see an orange box there. Now this was the photograph that was sent to me. There was a stringing issue, which I'll come on to in the second half. But as you can see my mouse there. You can see here there's evidence of these partitions breaking through on the outside. And when I looked at that, I thought, well, what's causing that? So let's have I think the next one is, let's see if we can move up a screen. So when I opened up his file, what happened is that we had a tree on the left here. And I thought, this is just too involved, too complicated to go and find stuff to put things right. So it led me to think, well, hang on, it's not, it could be improved, but I thought, and we've been on to you for a long time, haven't we, to send us your problems, so we got something to talk about. So I thought, well, we could use this as a bit of a session to perhaps see how we can improve it. So I looked at this, and then in the drawing I done, which we'll go on to, I've replaced it with this tree here. The only areas I've not extended out on both sides is the origin, because I didn't see any point because they're the same anyway. But you can see there's a lot less processes. Now, the fusion file that produced this left-hand one also produced this long timeline. Ignore the yellow bits in there, because we know why they're there. We've covered them before. But again, some 70 operations. And I thought, well, you know, when you start and get timelines of this length and you want to go back and change something, it starts to get complicated. Find out what you want to change, where you want to change it. So the box that I'm going to show you, that I'll run through with you, we've cut down to just these 20 operations. We've got effectively 2 sketches only to produce that box. One for the box and one for the hinge. There is a third sketch, but as you see later, it's a sketch, but it's not a sketch. So this is what I'm gonna run through with you. Is you can see the box on the left here. On the right hand side it shows it with the hinge. Bottom left is showing the hinge in a bit more detail, and the bottom right is showing the recess, if you like, that's in the bottom of the box to match in with the recess in the lid. The one thing I haven't done on my drawing is I haven't bothered to do a catch for the front. That's something that, you know, you may well want to add. So let's have a look. I think I now need to swap screens, so just bear with me a moment. So we'll go into our fusion screen and we'll go into the box. So that's now our finished box. Hopefully you can see that. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So let's close off our bodies a moment and see where we start from. So the first thing I start from is sketch number 1. And sketch number 1 is there. Now, one of the issues that I seen with the file that was sent to me is that the sketch for the outside had been done on one plane, and the sketch for the dividers had been on another plane, that was not in the same plane as the bottom, if you follow me. And I'm not 100% certain, but I thought that plus an overlap that was occurring on these edges was the cause of those compartments showing through on the outside of the box. So let's have a closer look at this sketch a moment. Where are we? Let's get an angle we can see. And what I'm going to do, let me bring my timeline back, and then we can go through it step by step. Oops, come back here. Right, so that's the sketch. Now, normally when I'm working, all these construction lines that come up, I tend to delete them as I go. And I always delete things like this with the scissors. But for this purpose over here, if you want them left there, then as just to remind you, on these boxes, you can turn off all the rubbish, as it were, so you can see the actual box. Now, one of the questions I had back was, well, you know, how do we do this? Well, quite simply, I'm not going to go through the work that I done on paper first, which was to sketch it out and work out my dimensions. But that was done initially just to get an idea. So the first thing was to do, and I shall do it alongside just to go, is to draw a partition. And that was the first partition. Now the next stage was to actually, let me just bear with me a moment while I go back and take that out, because I want to do, let's put some dimensions on it, and we'll say it's 40 and we'll put it at, say, 20. Okay, so that's the one you can see black. So the next stage then was to create a pattern, a rectangular pattern. Highlight that and make that the pattern. Now I want the pattern going that way. I want it going equidistant. So it's this bottom one. The first three are the left to right. So the bottom one, I want it symmetrical, so it's on either side. I want 5 of them in all. So I click that one up to 5. And then what I want to do is create a space in between them. Now I want the space in between them. If I do the spacing at 20, which is in there, then they're on top of each other, if you follow me. I want a wall thickness, let's say 2 millimeters. So if we then space them at 22 millimeters, we have a 2 millimeter wall thickness. So if you can imagine, that creates 5 boxes. Okay, the next stage then, let me just do okay there, is to put those in a rectangle. So it's there, whoops. That then produces my rectangle. I'm ready. The next stage then is to do 2 more rectangles, and I do those with the offset tool. Take that one out and take the other one out as well. So we end up with that situation. Then I produce a third one. I'm not going to go through all these in detail because you all know how to draw. So what you've got, if you like, you've got this one. These boxes here are the ones that we patterned. We create a rectangle around it to fill these gaps here. We then create this rectangle, which in this case is 1 millimeter. And then we do a second one, which in my case was 1.5 millimeters. Rounding off all the corners. Radiuses on this one was 1 millimeter, 2 millimeters, and a bit less on there, so they're all right. I will stop for questions after, so if you want a question on this, I'll take it. So that ends up with our basic sketch. So let's get rid of this lot a minute, because we don't want any of it. Now the next stage, you might think, okay, so this isn't at the base of my box. Now, some of you may know, some of you may not know, is how I would then extrude this out. Because, let me go into the next extrusion. Well, before I do that, let's finish it. So what I need to do is create a base, and then extrude the rest up. So what I will do is I will highlight the lot, go into extrude, and normally it wants to extrude upwards, which is fine, but I'm going to go minus. So I'm going to go minus 2 millimeters. Now what that does is keep the sketch on the top look that I can still get at. What a lot of people would do would extrude up and then they can't get the sketch. So now what I can do is to highlight those, which are my partitions, and extrude them up, and let's say 20 millimeters in that way. Now where the other bit comes in is the outer edge. So what I want to do with that one is take this outer edge and we'll extrude that one up, let's say 50-60 millimeters. Okay, and that gives us the top of the box. Now if we take the other one there, I don't want to extrude that up, so let me go back to my original ones here a moment. Oh, hang on, might be a good idea to switch the bodies on, mightn't it, so we can see them. Just bear with me a moment. Bodies. Right, so there's my base extruded, okay? Next step, it's a bit slow here. Come on, switch on, we'll get there in a minute. Right, let's get the right way up. So we got the partitions in. Next one is to pull up that inner one, which was the inner rectangle to there. Now the next one is pulling up the outer rectangle, but not as high. Let me turn off the sketches a moment. So you can see we've created the lip that we need for the lid to come on. And that's the box, that's the bottom of the box finished. Now, we now do a sketch, which is a sketch but not a sketch, because we want things lined up. So what I do next now is to create an offset plane, because I want to draw the lid, but I want the lid above. So the offset plane there is offset from the base, and it doesn't matter how far up, but clear the box. The next stage then is to put the sketches back on again so you can see them, is to use the bottom, turn the bodies off. They're purple because what I've done is projected that outline and the main rectangle onto this plane. So they're now tied to that one. You can't edit this sketch. It's tied to this one. If you edit this one, that one will change. So what we've done is reproduce the base sketch at a level so we can draw the box on. So the next stage then is to extrude the box in the same way. I don't know why they keep going off all the time. Let me turn off the bottom, but no, I'll leave them on. So again, I've created a thickness to the lid. And then we do the same thing as we did there. We extrude down that one and that one. So that's the inner one extruded. Then the next one is the outer one. Whoops. Which you can see now gives us the lip inside there to match up there, which matches this one down here, okay? Next is to create a sketch now for our hinge. Right, we'll get there. And again, and there's this, so there's the hinge. Now the hinge, if I took the bodies back on, you can see where the hinge is. The hinge is on the side here, on this face plane. Now the hinge is drawn in that way because I'm going to extrude it across. But basically that one and that one are going to create the hinge parts that's on the bottom, and that one will create the hinge that's on the top. Now, how do we do that? Okay. So, whoops, body's gone off again. So what we're doing is we produce one there. Now, how did we do that? Right, we'll go in and show you how to do that one. Edit feature. Now when you do, and you notice the profile I've got to highlight, as I said, is that one and that one, because it's the bottom. Let's turn off some of these other sketches to, right. So what we're doing is on the extrude, you can offset. So what I've done an extrude, and you've got here an offset. So you choose offset, and the offset in my case is minus 30 millimeters. That is that point there. Because I want the hinge to start 30 millimeters from this face. So that's where the extrude will start from, even though the profile's over here. And then I want the distance to be 20 millimeters, which is there. So it's generated an extrude that's 20 millimeters long, which starts 30 millimeters from that face. Okay? And then if we move on to the next one, I don't know why it keeps switching the bodies off. And then we've got the one on the other side, which again, if we do an edit, what we've done this time is, again, it's offset, but this time it's minus 71 millimeters, which is the distance from the edge of the box to that point there. And again, it's 20 millimeters long there. So that produces the two hinges that go on the box. Computer's a bit slow tonight too. Right, so how do we do the middle bit? Well, the middle bit now is there. Again, I'll go on to the edit. And this time, as you can see, we've now used the original circle. So that makes the hinge pin all in line, and the bit that connects to the box up there. And this time, again, the same technique. We've gone to an offset of minus 30, which is where this was, because if you remember, it was 10 millimeters there and 20 millimeters long. So we've made it 20.8 to give it a little bit of freedom in there so it doesn't bind. And we've made it 30.1 millimeters long to fit, sorry, not 20.8 millimeters long to fit in the gap. And that's it, finished. End of the box. Let's turn off the sketches. As I say, I haven't put a front catch on. Now there was one more area which you might think, well, okay, that's fine. But since this lip on this lid has been produced from the bottom sketch, will it actually close? Have we got a clearance on it? Now, I think you probably realize the amount of clearance, or the amount of difference between, say, the measurement of this lip and the measurement of the inside one. That's the clearance you want, and that will vary on your printer and the quality of the printer. If you do it in draft mode, then you may well need a bigger clearance than doing it in detail mode. So what I found, rather than doing a separate sketch for the lid, we just projected it, it's the same size. I now edit this, and I'm going to go now to a separate drawing just to show you how I reduce that lip. So what we do, if you can imagine, that's one half of it, and what I want to do is reduce that by, say, 0.2 millimeters to allow the clearance. So what we're going to do with this one is we can use, if we use the extrude tool, which we could do, but we can't do it on the corners. So the answer is to use the push-pull tool, and then you can go around and you can select all of them. Just bear with us while we get the other ones. You don't have to hold the shift key down for this operation either. You just select all the ones you want. And then you can see, now you can go in either way you want. So the answer is then, if you want to go in, then you just type in 0.1 millimeters, 0.2 millimeters, whatever you want, which will then make that lip that much smaller, so you've got that clearance with the other half of the box.